and be seated so that we can begin now. Thank you. Your table numbers are on your badges, so if you can find your table and please be seated so we can begin. Light and costume. Kaushik, start. Can you move the light on Kaushik?
Dear sirs and ma'ams, my name is Kaushik Narayanan, sirs and ma'ams. My ID number is 2001 B5A3308, sirs and ma'ams. My discipline is Bachelor's in Electrical Engineering, Master's in Physics, sirs and ma'ams. I come from PSVB School, Chennai, sirs and ma'ams. My hobbies are mountain biking, street racing, and bird watching. Well, like you pointed out, I'm sure many of you here would immediately associate this jabber to the typical BITSAA intro that a lot of you have recited numerous times to your seniors and have demanded from your poor Harris juniors. As the youngest BITSAA present here today, I've been demanded to introduce myself likewise. So good evening, everyone. I'm an enrolled student of BITS Pilani, presently here in the Silicon Valley, doing my practice school at a company called Microelectronics. And at this point, I really wish to thank the BITSAA who made this possible, Dr. Vijay Pathak, the Vice President at Kawasaki Micro. Thank you, Vijay. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a classic example of our theme for tonight, the power of the BITS Alumni Network. It's been a great time for me. I've had a very good experience. I sincerely hope that this is just the beginning. Many more of my juniors should have this experience that I've had. And to this regard, I request all of you here to make an attempt to extend the outreach of your organizations to collaborate with BITS for the PS program. Having said thus, let me introduce you all to your host for the evening, the Secretary of BITS Alumni Association, Silicon Valley Chapter, Ashish Garg. Thank you.
Alright, thank you Kaushik. That was a great intro. By the way, Kaushik will be available for ragging during dinner and after the event. So please help yourself. With so many BITSAAs together in this room, I'm sure it's not long before this evening becomes all about fun and entertainment. But before we get started, I want to talk to you guys about and give you a brief history of BITSAA Silicon Valley. BITSAA Silicon Valley started about 6 years ago, obviously in the Silicon Valley. And in true BITSAA style, it started with a party. It started with the Millennium Party in 2000. Since then, every year BITSAAs come together for a reunion to meet each other, to gossip, catch up on old things, and most importantly, to contribute and give back to BITS Pilani. One of the main events that BITS Alumni Association has done over the years was the BITS Connect project. This project started about 3 years ago here in the Valley. And a lot of BITSians who are present in this room today came together to not only contribute financially, but with efforts to give BITS Pilani the best Ethernet network of any Indian school. And today, by the way, I'm proud to announce that this reunion is being telecast live to BITS Pilani through that camcorder over there by using video over IP. And these two guys over there, Shashikanta and Mayur, they're actually going to show us BITS live right there on the screen. And keep in mind, it's 8 AM in India. So hats off to the BITSians who are actually sitting out there and watching us as time is going by. So hello guys. Is Abhilash over there? Okay, hi.
Hi.
Okay, so we got that. Can you see that again, please? Okay, it's a technical part, but this is for real. Sorry. Okay, there he is. Abhilash, can you see your smile again, please? The one that you showed me 10 minutes ago.
Hi, Ashish.
Okay, great. So it takes about 5 seconds for video to reach from India to US. Anyways, let me just move along. So what makes tonight very special is that after 6 years of foundation building, wherein we've done different projects, we've contributed to BITS Pilani, the BITSAA Silicon Valley is ready to take the next step. And what is this next step? To start contributing to the success of BITSians here in the Valley. So as this evening continues, you will see launches of our 3 main programs. One is around entrepreneurship, one around mentorship, and the third one is called the Visiting Faculty Program. This year also happens to be the birth centenary of Professor Lakshmi Narayan. Professor Lakshmi Narayan was the first director of BITS Pilani, and he's the guy who took the erstwhile Birla Engineering College and transformed into what we know as BITS Pilani. There will be more information that we'll send out on the BITSAA SVC Yahoo group about this event. So well, that was my long way of saying a short and a warm welcome to all of you. And let's get this party started. So I want to hear from all of you. Let's do a voice vote. I, by the way, am from the 97 batch, the proud 90s decade. And by the way, I don't know how many of you know, but the 90s are very well known for digging a tunnel from Malviya Bhavan to Meera Bhavan. This tunnel was started by Deepak Sharma right here in 1991, and the tunnel got over in 1999. Well, our junior in 2000s, they couldn't keep their mouth shut, so they went and told the institute about this tunnel. And that's when Malviya Bhavan was made into a girls' bhavan. But anyways, so I want to hear from the 90s here. Who is here from the 90s? Yeah! That's good. Come on, 90s, you can do better. Okay, that's 90s for you. So let's hear from the 2000s, the guys who tell too much truth. Okay, is anybody here from the 60s? Okay, there's somebody from the 60s, so I'll give him mine. 60s, okay. So we have one. So there's one guy from the 60s. Anybody from the 70s? 70s? Yeah. Okay, that's a pretty lively bunch, isn't it? Okay, anybody from the 80s? Yeah. Alright, so it's 90s that rule the world. Anyways, so now I'll hand it over to the president of BITSAA Silicon Valley, Chandra Bhogle. Please put your hands together to welcome Chandra. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. If there was one thought I wanted to communicate to you in this evening, that would be how can BITSAA SVC help BITSians and their companies to be very successful beyond average businesses and beyond routine promotions. I would like to quote from a book called Horse Sense by Alvarez and Jack Trumm, who basically invented the concept of positioning in advertising world. It's all about which horse do you ride to become very successful. So if you rely on product as your horse, then you have 20% chances of being very successful. It gets a little bit better with a bright idea at about 25%. And the next one is if you rely on good partners and core team members, then your chances are 40%. Now these are some of the areas BITSAA SVC is trying to contribute and make a difference. Now according to the authors, there are only 2 other options which are better than 40%. So the second best horse to ride with 50% chance. Anybody can guess? Your spouse marrying the right person. Bill Gates' wife or Madhuri Dixit's husbands are some examples. And for some of us, we have already lost that chance, but I'm sure there are quite a few in the audience. Now the best horse, where you have 67% chance of success, as good as it gets, just be born in the right family. Okay. So all you have to do is don't try to prove yourself. Don't fight with your father. Just use the resources and grow the family business. Examples, if you are one of the Birlas, this is the horse you want to ride. Let me now shift to the real activities we are planning under BITSAA. I think we are now at a stage where we have a very good foundation to go to next level of activities. Success of BITS Connect has created many joint opportunities for BITSAA to work with BITS, including possibility of now delivering remote lectures via video conferencing and similar methods. There are a large number of successful BITSians locally and globally who can now provide that extra support and guidance to us. BITSAA SVC has been there for more than 6 years, thanks to the work done in previous years, that now BITSAA SVC is a registered Californian non-profit organization. With the help of what we have done in the past with BITS, we have built very strong relationship between BITSAA and BITS. And there is a clear-cut communication and a much bigger commitment by BITS. In fact, all the initiatives we are doing for this year, BITS Pilani is very aware and we have a full support. There are more than 1,500 BITSians as per one estimate. And I think we have sufficient number of people in the Bay Area to make these initiatives effective. The approach is simple. Probably the biggest focus we have for coming years would be on success for local alumni. I think in very simple terms, if we can't make each other successful while we are living close to each other, I think there is very little we can do for others. So we got to help to make local alumni more successful. Of course, we don't want to forget about giving back to BITS. And there are clear-cut events under recreation, as you'll see the details. The two major initiatives are around entrepreneurship and career advancement. And mentorship program is common to both. Commercial success for the alumni would come primarily either through being successful entrepreneurs or achieving higher positions in the corporate world. And these are the areas we really want to have bigger focus on. About giving back to BITS, okay. Thanks to infrastructure like BITS Connect, now we are able to visualize much more scalable program to deliver lectures and to augment faculty at BITS. Actually, one of the biggest challenges as we understand today for institutes like BITS is really having sufficient high quality faculty. And also a team has successfully started working on augmenting research topics. Currently in Bay Area there is one PS2 station, practice school station. We are speaking with different companies to expand this already successful program in the Bay Area. On the recreation, now we didn't want to forget about the social aspects. So since Diwali is the biggest festival in India, there is an event being planned on October 14, which is completely centered around families. And there will be BITSian spouses and children's programs, and you will see the more details. Last but not the least, we are on to our 4th quarterly golf event. And the next one is on April 9th. And we are expecting 50 BITSians to participate, which is twice the number compared to what we had in the first event about a year back. Our objective is to have 100 BITSian golfers by end of 2006. And obviously, we want to plan a friendly match with our friends from alumni, from IITs. What I like to do now is hand over to Ashish Shah, who is the project manager for Project E, the entrepreneurship initiative.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. every one of us here is an entrepreneur at heart. Most of us have dreamt about starting our own companies. While some of us have succeeded, others may not have gone beyond an initial idea. So won't it be great if you can leverage the power of BITSAA network to help each other succeed? Won't it be cool if we can make BITSAA a forum for fostering entrepreneurship? A forum where we can network with and learn from successful entrepreneurs. A forum where we can find our team members, advisors and mentors, or even look for hot investment opportunities. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Plan E, the BITSAA SVC Entrepreneurship Initiative. So, these are some of the goals of the Plan E that we are planning for the year. And as you will see, we'll plan various events throughout the year. We'll kick off the project today with a panel discussion on power of BITSAA network for the BITS entrepreneur. The next event is planned for April 15th, and details will be announced soon, so stay tuned. It's a guest speaker presentation, an idea pitching session, and networking opportunity. We have a lot more events coming up, and you'll see some information on a handout on your table. So take a look and let us know how you can contribute. At this point, I'd like to discuss how we are unique. Two of the key ingredients for a successful venture are, number one, great team, and number two, access to the right set of resources. Well, we have the common BITSian bond that brings us together, and we are a young and talented set of people who are ready to jump into the next opportunity. And we have access to hundreds of movers and shakers, both in the valley as well as the whole world. So these things allow us to create a unique forum for creating successful ventures. So ladies and gentlemen, wear your entrepreneurial hat and let us know how you can contribute. The sign-up sheets are available on your table, and you can ask us any questions after the event. So let's jump right into the panel discussion, which is the main event for the evening. I'll start with the introduction of our distinguished panel members. First, I'd like to welcome Mr. Jen Ramankutti, who's the moderator for the panel today. Jen, would you please step up to the stage? Yes. Jen is the co-founder and CEO of UV Networks. And prior to that, he was the vice president of Cypress Semiconductor. He co-founded EmpowerTel and Lara Networks prior to that. He was the founding president of BITSAA SVC until 2006 and has played a key role in BITS Connect. He continues to help us drive the BITSAA activities and achieve our goals. Please welcome Jen. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Prem Jain to the panel. Prem is the co-founder and chief development officer of Neova Systems, a startup in the enterprise data center market. Most recently, he was the vice president and general manager of the routing technology group at Cisco. He led the BITSAA Connect effort from the US and was heavily involved in the execution. He's a very active member of BITSAA SVC. Thank you, Prem, for being here. Next, I'd like to invite Ms. Vanita Pandey to the panel. Vanita is the chairperson and CEO of Net Customer, and she leads the vision, strategy, and execution for the company. Prior to that, she had various positions at Healthion WebMD, Deloitte Consulting, Tandem Computers, McDonnell Douglas, and Tata Consultancy Services. She is the president of BITSAA Women's Council and a very active member of all our activities. Please welcome Vanita to the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Vivek Paul to the panel. Mr. Vivek Paul is currently a managing director at the Texas Pacific Group Ventures. Most recently, he was the vice chairman of Wipro and CEO of its Global Information Technology Division. Mr. Paul was very active in the execution of BITS Connect and has agreed to deliver live lectures to BITS students via video conferencing. Thank you for being here, Mr. Paul. Now I'd like to welcome Ms. Aladu Periyannan to the panel. Aladu is the Chief Technology Officer of Blue Code Systems. He has over 15 years of R&D experience, and prior to Blue Code, he was part of initial team at Entera, which was acquired by Blue Code. He's been a very active member and attendee of our annual reunions and picnic. Thank you for being with us, Aladu. And I would like to invite Mr. Raju Reddy to the panel. Raju is the founder and CEO of Sierra Atlantic, a leading e-business integrator. Prior to that, he spent 15 years in software development, marketing, general management, and is an entrepreneur. He's a member of BITS and a charter member of TIDE. He's been a great supporter for all activities, and his company hosts our BITSAA SVC website at no cost. Thank you for being with us, Raju. So with that, I'll hand the mic over to Jayan to start the panel.
Oh, has it been ordered properly, or should I? Huh? Yeah. Okay, thank you, panelists. I'm sitting in the convenient seat of being a moderator, so I don't have to answer any questions, but I get to ask you the questions. So, what's that? Yeah, not too far from here. Okay, I think go back one. Yeah, that's it. I think fundamentally, everyone wants to know entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of definition. So I think I decided I'll check up the dictionary and find out the exact meaning, and it even came up with the pronunciation. Apparently it's entrepreneur, and a person who organizes, operates, and assumes the risk for a business venture. But I want to get the panel's opinion on what an entrepreneur really is, and then we can take it from there to entrepreneurship. So I'm going to ask Raju first about your opinion on what entrepreneurship is all about.
It's on.
All right, thank you, Jan. It's quite an honor to be here with all of you. Before I get to the answer, I just wanted to say a few words about what Chandra, Ashish Garg, and Ashish Shah and this leadership team, the new BITSAA SVC new leadership team has been doing. I think just a fabulous idea. You guys finally zeroing in on this sort of the mentorship, the entrepreneurship. I think it's a long time coming, so I just want to compliment you. Let's give them a big hand. It's good that you have a dictionary definition. Frankly, I never looked at that before, but I can certainly share, my experiences, what it has meant to be, as an entrepreneur. I started my journey back in '93, so I have been kind of on this path for quite a few years now. And as I think about it, there were really two main considerations, and they're still very important to me. One, just the joy, I guess, of being independent, as in an opportunity to, I felt, to best control my own destiny by being an entrepreneur. And secondly, it's each of us, and you'll often hear this from entrepreneurs, they are passionate about something. In my case, it was largely the desire to be connected with India, predominantly back then. Now, the world has changed a lot. You don't need to be thinking about that in your professional life these days, right? To be connected with India. So to me, it was really the opportunity to be connected with India, and it meant, starting a services company, which has now become more of a best-in-class global services company, something that I was very passionate about, and I found the best way to achieve that was really through this sort of a journey of being an entrepreneur. And despite all the fun and glory, you often hear that an entrepreneur's journey also has a lot of risk. And Chandra, interestingly, was talking about how do you increase your odds of being successful. And one of the things that he mentioned is spouse, and I just can't say enough about it. I think it's extremely important, to have your family also fully behind that. And I was very fortunate to have my wife Neeraj sitting out there, to be a very, very important part of that along the way. And there is always that fear, frankly, that I think drives any entrepreneur, successful or otherwise. And it's a fear of competition. Sometimes even much more basic in the early years is the fear of meeting your payroll. And I guess a well-known management guru. This is the guy, I grew up in this company where my CEO, it's Andy Grove, who wrote the book, Only the Paranoid Survive. So, the fear is absolutely, it is the right thing, it is essential in some ways. So, I just wanted to, share that while there's a lot of, joy and glory and fun and all of that, it certainly comes with its own risk, and, it's the kind of thing that keeps me up at night, worrying about, what else do I need to do to really achieve my mission or my purpose for my business. And that again changes through the course of your journey. whatever might have driven me early on in terms of the vision for my company is quite different from what it is today. The core it may not be that different, but the specific objectives are quite distinct. And I want to leave it at that.
So Raju, sounds like masala to me. It's got all the ingredients. Is that entrepreneurship? Let's find out from Punita.
This sounds okay? You hear me? Entrepreneurship, it's a good question, Jen. I think it's being a bit crazy and not being uncomfortable about it. At least for me, that's been the case. It's also been about being different, and again, being comfortable about it. It's also about, it sounds very funny, waking up every morning and wanting to do what you're going to do without worrying about what comes with it, or totally being proud of uncertainty that goes with entrepreneurship and not being fearful about it. Goes a little bit against what Raju said, only paranoid survive, but it's kind of being comfortable with paranoia, if you will, and not trading that for anything else that you would get with a comfortable lifestyle, if you will. And last but not the least, for me personally, it's been really about being very comfortable with the idea of disassociating what you do with what you make. And I know it sounds crazy, but when I was in a job, I always worried about what am I going to make personally, what is my next promotion going to look like. And once you become the entrepreneur, the buck stops at you, and you're actually very comfortable even making a big zero, or maybe even going into the negative, and really your mind becomes disassociated with the money part of it, and it gets associated with the success part. And of course, you would assume that down the line, success would make you money, but when you're doing it, you're really enjoying the act of doing it, not the money you make at that point. And I know it sounds crazy, but you are actually proud of being crazy at that time. So enjoying the journey, if you will, has been the greatest part of entrepreneurship for me personally.
Now it's making sense. It's more like crazy Indian masala. Let's find out. Prem, what do you think?
I have few slides actually I want to show you. The masala gets even more interesting.
That's it.
Next slide, please. So this is really, you can see it. I think when you come here, you can see the entrepreneurship started by selling laminate, right? I mean, that's what you keep on hearing. The kids, younger kids, they say, okay, I'll sell laminate. The point here is that laminate has to be global now, right? You have to go to all different countries, euro, dollars, yen, and stuff like that. Next slide, but it's even more interesting. Forget laminate, real money in bottled water. Next one. This is a lot of people, when they come in there, that's what they think about. The entrepreneurship is all about getting rich quick scheme. Just make it fast bucks and get out, which is not really true, but next one. This is, why should I give you my signature, because you will sell only in the eBay. Go to market is very important, by the way, Having ideas, but figuring it out how you're really going to take it, make it successful, to me is the most important aspect, which I learned from my experience starting companies in 1983, first one. I found myself that we had such a great product, which makes technically, as an engineer, make a lot of sense, but didn't make any sense for the business perspective. And it failed, because you had to make a sale to 3 people to sell that product. Forget about one side, it was voice, data, video, integrated PBX, which was too early for its time. And at the same time, it was very difficult to make a sales because the IT department was not integrated at that particular time. And that's a very simple thing. You can miss and miss the boat. It also tells you that it's not the only thing, which is, if you're unsuccessful, it does not mean that you give up. You keep on trying. And then next one, you become a little bit wiser and you don't make the same mistakes. And you can really make it up. Next one. This is very interesting, This is risk-taking, which you talk about, With my brains and your money, we have nothing to lose other than your money. Look at the next slide. So my idea of risk and reward is for me to get the reward and others to take the risk. But this is not true either. Okay. Next one. I thought this was really good because whenever you start, you need a seed money. So you need little seed money. Nowadays, the little is really As you know, the expenses in the Bay Area is quite a bit. So my definition is really one who perceives the market opportunity, then has the motivation, drive, and the ability to mobilize resources to meet it. That's really, in a very concise form, is an entrepreneur could be.
Oh, that's really good. Now I'm starting to get it. It's the crazy Indian masala delivered to the world by Santa Claus. Right? I'm starting to get there. Before I get to Vivek, I want to get to the youngster there. Considering, Alagu, what is your perception of an entrepreneur?
Well, you know, as a youngster growing up in the internet age, one of the first things I did when Ashish told me that we had to start defining entrepreneurship is one of the first questions I went and did a Google search on it. You know, as usual, found like pages and pages of stuff. But I've always relied on this thing called Wikipedia. So I went there, saw the definition of entrepreneurship, and it said, I think it said something like the practice of starting new organizations or something like that. And then it went on and on about how entrepreneurship is the American way, and, you know, blah blah. But I think one of the key themes that it talked about was risk taking, which I think, you know, all of the previous folks have talked about. And one of the things that I'm always reminded about when I'm thinking about, you know, any entrepreneurial idea or anything is actually one of the Thai events I attended. It was a panel discussion. In fact, it was about voice over IP, and there's a PictureTel CEO and the WebEx CEO. He's a really funny guy. You should listen to the WebEx CEO. And one of the things he said, which has sort of stuck with me and you know, I repeated to a lot of people. He said, to be an entrepreneur, you either need to be naive or you need to be arrogant. There's no in between. You got to be naive or arrogant, and I've actually experienced this myself. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine, Charles, who worked with me and myself, we decided to go. We wanted to start a company. We never actually did that. Charles is off. He's CEO of another company called Nevis. But we spent about 6 months meeting at a Starbucks, you know, in Menlo Park. And every day we used to, you know, get our ideas together and then spend 2 hours drinking coffee and thrashing the ideas out. The problem was, we were neither naive nor arrogant. We were just overanalyzing every idea, right? So the thing that the WebEx CEO was saying is, you know, for you to be an entrepreneur, if you're naive, you just jump into an idea and you just go do it. You think you can do it even though you don't know anything about the subject or the area or the business model or any of that. And then the other extreme is the arrogant. You know, you think you know everything and you just go do it. So you know, that's pretty important. I mean, the whole risk-taking is a fairly important aspect of being an entrepreneur. And if you overanalyze something, you know, you're not going to be one of those extremes, and it's going to be really hard. You're going to analyze things to that.
Oh, this is getting even more interesting now. This is about the crazy Indian masala, delivered according to the Wikipedia now. Internet is coming into the picture. What do you think, Vivek? I mean, after having watched so many things happen so many years, what is your definition?
You know, so I think that rather than go into these eardrums again, maybe I'll just keep this far away from me. But I think that you know, if you look at sitting across the table from a lot of entrepreneurs, it's still interesting that despite the big shakeout after the tech wreck, there's still a lot of people who basically are doing it because they just want to make money quickly. And it's amazing that it still exists today. But I think that you see, in some sense, two different sides of the same thing, which is you find that people who are successful as entrepreneurs have an itch to scratch, and it won't go away. And they just have this itch, and they just gotta get at it. And at the same time, despite the fact that they have this single itch that they need to scratch, they also have that humility that says that I know that whatever itch I'm going to start out scratching will actually turn out to be a completely different itch by the time I finish this. Because many of the successful businesses actually have made turns, you know, along the way into, you know, whatever opportunity arose. And that combination of having that sort of relentlessness and at the same time the flexibility is, I think, you know, pretty unique and interesting. I think the second thing that you find, or that you look for, at least from my sort of, you know, brief period in the venture capital business, is a great sense of optimism. to the point you made that, optimism comes out of either naivete because you don't know all the risks, or an arrogance because you discount all the risks. But ultimately, it really has that incredible amount of optimism, coupled with, what I just mentioned earlier, which is resilience, which is just this incredible faith in yourself, so that, when life kind of throws you down, you go, just get up and get out and get going again, even if it means going in a different direction. So I would say that, if you look at entrepreneurialism, it really is, everything that you talked about. But I would say, couple that with this sense of, having a direction and being willing to change it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think if you just flip to the next, there you go. I think it's really trying to capture all of the things that you talked about. It is really about identifying pain points as opportunities. Most people look at pain points as pain points. These are problems. Most entrepreneurs look at that as an opportunity. I saw some slides up there where people are trying to sell water instead of lemonade, because why put that extra effort? Just pour the water down and charge them in euros. Takes calculated risk. That's important. It's not about blind risk, it's about calculated risk. Not overanalyzing, but doing that in a positive way. At the same time, leading positively. Very passionate, unconventional. There's no space for conventional wisdom in this space. It's not there. And it's completely open for judgment. And ultimately, what it does is really it creates new jobs, and the entrepreneur does get paid for it. How much is a matter of time, and some people actually end up losing everything in the process. But that's really what it is, and I think it did capture everyone's. So we are on the same ground. So we'll get started with a few questions. The next one, Raj, it's for you. Was the BITS Alumni Network instrumental in founding and growing Sierra Atlantic? Could you elaborate?
Yeah. Absolutely. In my case, there's no question about it. Just to give you a little bit of a background on the company, the guy I co-founded the company with, Sarat Sura, he was another BITS classmate of mine. I often say he was a smart guy who decided to stay back in India. I came here in search of something, I'm not sure, and then finally, my professional pursuit again with India. So that's how I got started. I have actually quite a few senior executives also within my organization. With respect to the alumni network and what's happening now, so in my case, there's no ambiguity about that I have been a beneficiary of that. We also have been a practice school for BITS in recent years, and also, of course, a great place to recruit talent. How can you argue about that? But I think now with growing initiatives like what we are doing here in BITSAA SVC, and also there's a new program at BITS called CEL, Center for Entrepreneurship Learning. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about it. My sense is you're going to see many more business leaders in coming years out of the BITSian community.
Is there a follow-up question on this one? Can I get him?
So Raju, what do you think that BITSAA can do to take this Pilani that's been started to the next level? And what role can BITSAA play?
Well, I think that this certainly marks the beginning, in my view, of such initiatives. And with all such ideas, it's a continuity that's going to be so important. And hopefully those of us who have signed up as mentors can really devote the time necessary to this. Now, there are several other forums too. I certainly encourage people, especially here in Silicon Valley, to look at the Thai, and one of the, I think Aragu mentioned Thai earlier. There are other forums also where you can certainly benefit from. But my sense is, with most of these things, it's really up to the aspiring entrepreneur to some extent, how best he or she leverages this sort of opportunity. Make use of this. You've got the contacts, and you've got the mentor list, and go after that. And fortunately, we have several people in the BITSAA community that are also in the venture group these days.
The next question.
Jan, I just wanted to add one comment, just to complete the thought on what you talked about earlier on entrepreneurship. And Vivek certainly would know much more about this than I do, coming from the venture community. But when you go to venture capitalists for money, there are really two main criteria that they look at. And that's something to keep in mind when you're trying to pursue this route of entrepreneurship. One is really how big and growing is this market that you're participating in. And second, the management team behind this. Almost everything else becomes secondary to some extent. I know Prem talked about having the right technology, but so what if you can't sell it? And Vivek rightly pointed out how you kind of adapt as you go along, build your company. Because if you've got the right management team, you might have started with the wrong idea, but as long as the market is large enough and it's a growing one and you've got the right team, everything else is much more likely to fall in place. Just something I wanted to share.
That's so true. I think there's even a terminology called course correcting along the way, which is what Vivek was pointing out. That's wonderful. Next, Punita. In your experience, is the business world still a man's world? If so, how did you manage to navigate through those infested waters, especially being a minority?
All right, my token question is here. Well, what I can tell, of course, the women sitting in the audience, one of the best part of being a woman, for me personally, was that I was educated at BITS, really. And when I say that, I mean it, because being a minority isn't bad. I mean, that's what BITS taught me. I was, again, a minority in my class. Did that stop me from doing what I had to do at BITS? Never. There were always more men or boys at that time in the class, fewer girls, but that's okay. I mean, why should being a minority be a weakness? Until I came to Silicon Valley and until I actually jumped into entrepreneurship, when this topic became a big focal point. You are the immigrant, you are a woman, and how hard is it, and life is so, I mean, the press also wants to write a story when you actually want to identify with all the trials and tribulations of being a minority. And to tell you the truth, it really is not, and in many ways, it is a mindset that we got to change ourselves. That it's okay to be a minority, it's okay to be different, but it's not okay to say because I am different or because I'm a minority, I should take a second place or I should become a second-class citizen. I shouldn't. And being born in India, of course, all of us grew up looking at Indira Gandhi as, at least my growing years, she was the leader of the country, and I never saw her as a female. I saw her as a leader. And that, to me, I think ingrained in my head that, you could do whatever you want to do in life. Your gender, your race, where you came from, which school you go to, really doesn't make a huge difference. But it did. And to tell you the truth, BITS is a very unique place. When I look back at the experience I had at BITS, the guys, of course, you guys were always majority, and probably still are, even though there are a lot more women in campus now. But you guys are special, really, I mean it, because you never made girls feel any worse or any inferior, and the same thing goes with professors. Never ever in a class did I ever have to face a question, you're a woman, why are you doing electrical engineering? I mean, there were people who would tell me, there were colleges where professors would tell girls to, go home, learn to sew because you're going to get married, and that's what would come handy. And I was aghast when some of my classmates from school would tell me that their professors tell them in the classroom, why are you studying math? You should go home and learn to sew. And I said, gosh, I don't think any professor in my class has ever said that, and they dare not say that. And that's a special place called Pilani. So I have been privileged really to be part probably of a country, and then a family, and then a BITS system of education, where even though I was always a minority, I never felt like one. So I came to Silicon Valley not knowing anything different. And when I jumped into entrepreneurship, that probably was something I considered a strength, not a weakness, that it's okay that you're different, and it's okay you're a minority. When I went to venture capitalists, a lot of people told me, and to give you an example, I was part of a, they call this Women's Springboard. So all the companies that pitch to VCs have some woman in the company as a founder or a VP or a CEO. And to tell you the truth, I found it very strange that in this country, this is a very advanced country, we would need a forum like that, because women don't get enough, supposedly enough mileage in front of VC, so they had to create this event. And the lady, there were 2 mentors assigned to each woman entrepreneur to learn how to pitch to a VC. And there was this, I can never forget that experience. So one of the women assigned to me as my mentor, she was actually a VC with a VC firm, and very well known firm too. And she told me, Punita, when you walk into that room in front of VCs, you're at a disadvantage. And I said, why? And I was truly, I was puzzled. I didn't know what she meant. She said, you know, you don't have to open your mouth. You don't have to say a word. You just walk in and you're at a disadvantage. I said, you know what, sorry to say that, I don't take that. Whatever makes you, and I know she wasn't being mean. She wasn't being rude. She was actually being nice when she said that, because she's part of that world where she had seen some of that. But you know what? When she said that to me, I really truly felt that I was blessed that I wasn't born here. And then I never had to face that system where people feel that they are at a disadvantage just because of who they are. It's not because of the idea, it's not because of the school they went to, it's just because of who they are. They walk into a room and they are looked at as a disadvantage. So what can I tell you guys and gals? That, you know, I never for one felt that it was a disadvantage, and it has never felt that way, although along my journey I have met some stereotypes. And I won't discount that those do exist. But I can tell you also, there are many more people who don't believe that those stereotypes matter. And there are many more people now that say it's okay to be different. Be who you are, but be very comfortable in your own skin. Don't try to imitate something that you're not. And as long as you're comfortable in being yourself, go ahead and pursue what you want to pursue. Whether it's your dream job, whether it's your dream idea that you want to convert into a company, or a non-profit venture you want to take up. There have been all kinds of things that I've seen people do, and they have never let their so-called minority status come in the way.
Is there a follow-up question? Any follow-up? Okay, the next one. And that's for Alagu. What made you start your new venture? Were you naive or you were arrogant?
I think maybe. Actually, when I after I heard about that naive, arrogant thing, and I analyzed myself, you know, sort of didn't find myself like in either extreme. But depending on the situation, it always ended up in one of the extremes. But you know, what made me start or you know get into this? I mean, I actually came to the Silicon Valley about 14 years ago. Finished my graduate school, actually got a job on a campus interview with Apple. And I was just excited to just come over to the Valley to work for Apple. But my plan was always to come to the Silicon Valley and work for a large company like Apple for a few years. You know, do the standard, get your green card, and then like go off to do a startup. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as easily as that. You know, I joined Apple in '92. You know, for most of you who follow Apple here, it's like I've pretty much been with Apple through every CEO there was. So you know, I started off with John Scully, Michael Spindler, you know, all the way up to like Steve Jobs. You know, so I had to wait that long to get my green card, because I mean, you know, Apple is doing extremely well today, but the mid-90s was probably one of its most tumultuous times. And in fact, you know, I finished 5 years at Apple. We used to have a sabbatical, and you get a plaque saying if I finished 5 years. I got a really unique plaque because it's usually signed by a CEO, and I finished my 5 years to date. Actually, it wasn't signed by any CEO because they didn't have a CEO. Anyway, all that aside, so it took me about 6 years before I could sort of get into why I came to the Silicon Valley. So you know, I always planned in '98 is when I left. For 6 months, I was actually trying to start a company before I joined the guys who started Intera, and you know, passed up several opportunities. But you know, having been an engineer, you know, put prototypes together of, you know, started going and pitching VCs. It was quite an interesting time. I think that around '98 was when sort of the first wave of the internet had really passed. And the NASDAQ had taken a dive back to like 1500. I think it was like 97, 98 before the craziness of the 99 era. And so it wasn't actually the greatest time to go be pitching to venture, to get venture money. So, you know, anyway, the idea was a little bit, it was quite interesting to me. A lot of ideas are actually born from your own frustration with something, you know, and my original idea to start a company was born out of, you know, the internet had just taken off. There was a lot of streaming of new content on the internet. In fact, you know, I was one of the founding members of the QuickTime streaming team at Apple, so, you know, I had a lot of background in that area. And one of the things I wanted to do, you know, I used to live up in San Francisco and commute down to Cupertino. And, you know, for those of you who used to follow internet radio at that time, there was a radio called CNET Radio. And it was only available on the internet. And, you know, I wanted to listen to it when I was driving down from San Francisco. Because, you know, otherwise it was National Public Radio. I don't listen to much music. And so, you know, I had my cell phone, and I wanted to basically figure out a way to actually get CNET radio onto my cell phone. So I put this prototype together back in '98, where there's a little server back in my house, and I had, you know, those are like sort of pre-DSL days, so I had ISDN at home. And I had this little system which would actually take streaming content off the internet and then stream it out. I would dial in my second line, my fax line, and then it would actually stream it out to me. So I took this, you know, I got a couple of other friends, and we went and actually pitched it to a bunch of venture capitalists. Some of them never went anywhere because the business model just didn't work. I mean, you know, those were the days when, you know, cell phone airtime was quite expensive. People were saying, like, yeah, who's going to, like, be connected for an hour on the, you know, on your cell phone using airtime to just listen to some, you know, a little bit of internet radio. So anyway, that was my first attempt at a startup. We pitched it several times, that didn't work. And then that's when I joined, you know, the guys at Antara. We were building a streaming media caching system. So that was more sort of not a wild, wacky idea. It was a fairly sort of mainstream idea about delivering internet content. And, you know, so pretty much, you know, what made me start, yeah, I'd always wanted to do this. You know, tried a couple of different ideas before I joined the guys at Antara. I was pretty happy I did that, and, you know, helped grow the company from there onwards and then sell it.
That's wonderful. I think what you're also pointing out is that there's windows of opportunity. You've got great ideas. Look what's going on now. People want to stream down video to a cell phone, when the real problem in a cell phone is how do you conserve the battery for the longest and the most precious of things, which is talking. And so I don't know how that's going to work out, but that people have found to be the best business to invest in. And there are a lot of investors investing. God knows how many of them are going to be successful, but we'll wait and see. Any follow-on questions? Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, Vivek. So we're going to, I think there's all kinds of words for this, but I'm not going to expand that. But I think most people actually think that entrepreneurs are the only ones who actually go looking for money. Not many people know how VCs actually go get the money. And that's going to be an interesting one for people to know. It's equally, you know, it's got its own process, it's not easy. And so if you can share a little bit about that.
Sure. So, you know, I think that there's one simple formula that VCs use to raise money, which is they promise to give back more than they took. And I think that pretty much applies to every entrepreneurial conversation that you have as well. And so I think that, you know, from a VC perspective, you know, that ultimately is the acid test. You know, so all the rest said and done, what you're doing is you're trying to figure out, do I know more about this space that, you know, I have an angle that nobody else does? Do I have better revenue leverage because either I have other portfolio companies or I have contacts that I can help this company with? Do I have better technical leverage that allows me to help this company in ways that are, you know, more than anybody else can? And therefore, I am the most natural partner. I think the reality is that in today's world, being an entrepreneur is a phenomenally good time because there is more capital than there are good ideas out there. And in some sense, you know, there's a competition from a venture capitalist perspective to be able to get the best ideas out there. But really, ultimately, the way that matchmaking happens is through this notion of you can bring something to the party that's better than anybody else can. And, you know, if you look around, you have sort of a full tiering of venture capitalists. You have those people who are very focused on seed, where their essential idea is that I can help you think through something. Or, you have the early stage guys who basically say, I can place a few big bets, I have better technical leverage, and, as long as a couple really hit it big, it's good, and then sort of, so on and so forth. Having said that, I think that the value goes through, and, I've learned this actually from some people in this room, Vijay Parekh, my classmate back there, but he taught me my first lesson on venture capital. But I think that, I think what you realize is that
Vivek, sorry to interrupt, but can you hold the mic closer to your mouth? We got a question from Pilani, and those guys in Pilani cannot hear you.
Oh, okay. Fine, so I guess...
Those guys are really awake there.
Alright, so I think that, the valley here has gone through phases where, late stage investors have made more money, early stage investors have made more money, and right now, frankly, it feels like early stage investors are making more money than late stage investors, but that's a cycle that keeps turning, you can't really figure it out.
Wonderful. Is there any follow-on questions? Are there any questions from Pilani by any chance?
Not yet.
Anyone? Oh, this is amazing. Here's a follow-on question from the panel. All right, Punita.
Okay, Vivek, you're of course a big success story for BITS, and it's always nice to, hear someone who kind of puts BITS on the map. I'm interested in your transition from, being a very successful IT leader who really put the whole India and offshoring on the map in terms of a global strategy, into the VC world of, I assume a lot of cross-border type investment and stuff. So if you can just contrast the two worlds for us, would be great.
I think that, it certainly is a challenge going from an operating job to a venture job. And I would say that the biggest challenge is that if you are a successful operator, whether as an entrepreneur or as a member in a large team, you're used to going after big challenges and conquering them. And so you say, no matter what the challenge, I'm going to be smart enough and dogged enough that I'm going to conquer that hill. As a venture capitalist, you actually have to say, that's really difficult hill, the hell with it, let's go take that easy hill. And I think that notion of, the fact that you get to choose which hill you have to take, I think is very powerful, and I think it's very difficult to do. I think the second thing as an operating guy that, that you realize is that it's very easy to put yourself into that situation. So I think that, as I said, I learned a lot from many people who are here today, but when you talk to them, they say that the biggest risk an operator does when they go into the venture capital businesses, they put themselves into the situation. So you should not be assessing, what could I do if I had that business plan? You have to assess, what would that management team do with their business plan? And I think that is a different way of thinking that you have to get accustomed to. There's many more, but I'll stop at that.
Good. There's another one? Yeah.
Thank you, Vivek. Quick question. There's a lot of information available on the venture capitalist community in this country. What are the rules in India, and how is the landscape in the VC community in India? Can you share some information?
So I'd say that the VC community in India actually is very transparent. So there's a couple of websites, the URLs of which I do not remember off the top of my head, thanks to the simple task of bookmarking everyone, so you never have to remember them anymore. But actually you can get weekly updates on what venture activity happened in India, who did what investing, etc. So there is plentiful information available, and it's a pretty transparent thing. Having said that, I think that venture in India is particularly difficult right now for the following reasons. One, except at the really early stage, there's not a lot of great product ideas. Everybody wants to be a service company. And as I was talking to one of my friends earlier, that who set up a service company, that it looks a lot easier than it turns out to be. And so I think that you don't really have a lot of creative, innovative new ideas. I think things are changing now. And we're beginning to see, particularly on the mobile platforms, some interesting stuff coming up, but that's at the seed level. Outside that, what you're seeing is there's kind of a arid desert where everybody went after services for several years, and there's really no great idea. So you don't have the mid-stage or sort of later early-stage companies in India. And then you have a lot of interesting opportunities in companies that have reached their revenue and profitability stage. But there, from a venture capitalist perspective, it's very difficult because if you wanted to raise $8 million in the US, $8 million to public market is not a viable option. In India, actually, $8 million to public option is very viable. And the Indian markets are on fire. I mean, they're up, whatever, 400% over the last 3 years. And, so as a result, when you're a venture capitalist, and you're talking to a entrepreneur who says, I want next year's earnings multiplied by next year's PE, because PEs expand every year, that is a challenging conversation to have on valuation. So I think that, the short answer to your question is there's plenty of information available. Long answer, venture is a completely different business than venture capital.
Can we go to the next question? Prem, we are talking about exit strategies. We've already started the company, we've grown it up, now we want to exit. Because obviously the VC wants his return that he's promised. So what would your advice be to BITSians who are targeting the ventures we acquired by big companies like the Cisco?
Yes. As you can see, that I was not really very much thinking about exiting. My company got acquired in 1993 by Cisco, and I was there until 2005 July. And actually, what Vivek was talking about, coming from a corporate world and starting another company. Actually, I thought I was going to retire basically and really help the younger ones, such as a lot of you are here, to become entrepreneurs going forward. That was my dream actually after I thought I was going to retire from Cisco, and that's what I was going to do. Except the itch which you had, of entrepreneurship does not go away. We thought we were going to take off for a couple of months and do nothing. 2 weeks later we are back into somebody's house talking about the ideas and stuff like that and start a new venture. And which is we started and now is, let's see. But the transition was very difficult, I can tell you that. Because there is a lot of help once you reach to a corporate ladder to a certain point. There is all kinds of help which is available, which you take it for granted. And here you have to do everything from yourself, including making coffee, by the way. So that was a big transition. I think the exit strategy, in general, it depends upon the acquisitions by any companies has 4 very important things to be successful in that particular sense. And like larger corporations, you need to look at it. So one is, you need to make sure that you have the same short-term vision. You have to make sure there is a good long-term vision. Okay, so make sure there is a good synergy in that particular sense. The third one is geographical proximity, which is very important. And the fourth one, which is, I think the most important aspect, is the people. Okay. Now, the vision is obviously very important and stuff like that in that particular sense. So, if there are ventures you want to target for larger corporations to be acquired and stuff like that, I think there are a lot of companies in the valley they're constantly looking for, because what happens is after you become to a certain point, there are a lot of new ideas, which is they have the ideas, they have everything, but they cannot execute because there is a lot of legacy going on in the current products and you can't really make the transition. So there is tremendous opportunity actually for people to look at it and see if they can acquire by the big companies, but you need to make sure that it, like I said, those 4 points is very, very critical. To make sure those companies have that particular thing. There was a time when the bubble was going on, the acquisitions was going left and right. And I'll tell you, some of those acquisitions didn't really make it in terms of, to me, I think the most important aspect is to make that venture is acquired by big companies, but really make a big impact. Okay, that is to me is the most successful thing which you can make it. And I was very lucky to be one of those. When acquired in '93, we stayed there for 13 years and took that particular venture from $10 million revenue to a $10 billion revenue. And that is to me is really, and those opportunities by the way are always there. The other thing which you need to look for is a transition. The most important aspect is every area, which is, you guys can think of any different ideas and stuff like that, there is a transition going on. And if you happen to have that company in the right place, right time, and the transition is occurring, it's very easy for the venture or for the large corporations to acquire you, because they are looking to make a product in that particular transition, so you may be the right place, right time.
Wonderful, Prem. I think, yeah, most people know about the acquisition and how it did transform Cisco from being a small one to become the multi-billion-dollar business. And it also is the fact that I think it's not about the exit, but I think most often when you take money from people, you have to plan for the exits, unfortunately. But you're right, I think as an entrepreneur, you're continuously building that value. As a management team, you're continuously building the value. You have a question? Rajesh?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a comment on this. I mean, maybe it's a contrarian view, but when somebody asks a question about how do you build your company to be acquired by, whether it's Intel, Cisco, whoever, I mean, my view, for what it's worth, is just as an entrepreneur, you really have to build your company like it's going to be a high-quality public company someday. Don't worry about who's going to acquire you for what and when. Then the right things will happen. You really have to, pursue it like it's going to be a high-quality public company. Whatever the public markets may be looking for, your market, your differentiators, your product, revenue, profitability, and everything else. Then the right things will fall in place. Just
wonderful. Any follow-on questions from anyone? Oh, you have? Okay.
We're pretty feisty, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
So Prem, you've kind of worked in entrepreneurial environments, whether it's a large company, mentally single, Dilbert-style environments. So how do you, so a similar question to what I can answer about the venture property. How do you see, shifting your style?
I think it was very challenging in the first few weeks, because your mindset, you're thinking big, like you were talking about. I think I have the similar kind of problems because 2-3 things in these startup companies are very, very critical. One is your self-confidence. The other one is you have to have total commitment. So once you are successful, you can say, okay, this is not something which I'm very hungry about it. You have to be hungry to really make some impact in that particular sense. The other point, which is very, very important, is you have such a great reputation. I mean, when you're in your companies and stuff like that, and you're very successful, I think there are a lot of people who will knock at your door. Okay, both in terms of coming with the money as well as coming with the ideas, and a lot of people want to join you. And newspapers will write something about you which is you don't want them to even write anything about it. So I think it's a lot of challenge which you face. The thing is that you have to be basically go back to the basics of starting, like all your success and everything, you should just forget about it. You should think here is a clean slate of paper. And you think about the same way when you were doing it when you were young, that here is the idea, which is the transition is going on in this particular area. I wanted to make the impact and I want to make it very successful. And I think somebody made the comment, Raju made that comment, actually, that is very true. Don't look at this exit right in the very beginning. I think you should think about it, the ideas to make it very, very successful. There may be many opportunities for exit. I think at that particular point, and you have your choices to make that. So I think my transition it took us 3 months, by the way, to make that transition. But now I think we're back into the gear with a full speed to make it, hopefully a successful venture.
Thank you, Prem. Any other questions? Oh, there's.
I have a question, but it's probably not related to today's discussion. It's about the BITS Pilani brand. In simple terms, and I've heard this before from Campbell. People remember the story longer than they forget your name. So, how is BITS Pilani's story in the corporate market, whether it is Bay Area or in the country or in the US? What is the awareness out there on successful corporate execs like yourselves and entrepreneurs like yourselves? What is the awareness like? We have a great set of entrepreneurs backed by or graduated from institution like Pilani. Because I can say on the IIT front, the brand is there. People know a person coming from IIT more than the name of the person that they are relating to. So can you share some thoughts on how, if we don't have a brand, if Pilani does not have a brand today, what do you think Pilani or BITSAA network should do to work on improving the brand?
Vivek, okay, so yeah, Punita, yeah, just.
Well, the reason I passionate about this topic is brand is really in every one of us. It's not really BITSAA or even BITS that could create the brand. It's the people who create the brand. And so even though now IIT name may sound bigger than each of the individuals who graduated from IIT, keep in mind that the amount of publicity that they themselves create. And it's good to see networks like this, and thanks to all the great work that the BITSAA folks are doing with Chandra and Ashish duo, and I know the number of emails I've seen in the last few weeks and months is amazing. That tells me that there is a grassroots movement going on. But brand is really in all of us, and we should be very proud of our heritage. We should all be very proud of the fact that we went to such a great institution. And as we go about our day, as you go about your day, wherever you work, make sure wherever it's relevant, it comes up. So just as an example, I'm a Deloitte alumni, and nowadays they're making a big push around reaching out to alumni wherever they are and having them registered on their website. And then you fill out a profile and they ask for your undergraduate or all the institutions or colleges that you've been to. And of course they have a drop-down menu with all the college names. And then they ask if your college is not there, please send a note and make sure it's entered into their database. And of course BITS Pilani wasn't there. Berkeley was there, and so was all the, and actually lots of IITs were there. So what does that tell us? It's not that Deloitte doesn't have any other BITSians other than Punita, but I at least made the mention to enter BITS Pilani as one of the drop-down menus in the school category. So all of you, whichever company you work for, make sure they understand BITS Pilani and make sure as you are hiring people that there is a criteria assigned to folks who are from BITS Pilani, because I'm sure you're very proud of the fact that you graduated from Pilani. I am. And I think all of us here, we can all contribute. It really starts with people like Vivek and Prem, who are putting the name on the map, if you will. But each one of us, I think, has an onus towards that, and then to the extent we can help that, we should. And I think this network, to me, is very powerful. Thanks, Chandra, for bringing this group together and the entrepreneurship trust that we have created. I think one of the questions that you asked earlier, I have personally benefited a great deal by being part of BITS alumni, without being part of, so-called the BITSAA network, if you will. One of my key clients was as a BITS alumni. Raju was on my board and helped me out a great deal as a sounding board for a long time. This is, more word of mouth. Someone from Raju's group knew about me, and then he said, hey, Punita, Raju is in the Bay Area, you should, seek him out and talk to him. But now that we have a more formalized structure, each one of us can help each other, but more importantly, help the entire BITSian community by creating a brand that would be much powerful than any other brand. And not to badmouth IIT, but those guys really make it a point, guys. I mean, I don't know how many of you have not heard of Kanwal Reiki. Anyone here who has not heard of Kanwal Reiki? Oh, you have not heard of Kanwal Reiki, so you are the lone guy here. How many of you have heard of Naveen Jain? Okay, quite a few, but not all of you. I would think that all of you should have heard of Naveen Jain because he was the co-founder of Excelam, the same company that Kanwal Reiki was the founder of. Now, Kanwal Reiki, of course, is an IITian, and Naveen Jain, Dr. Naveen Jain, is a BITS Pilani guy. I didn't know for a long time. I have met him socially in a couple of gatherings, but I didn't know he was a Pilani alumni. And he's an extremely smart guy who was actually the brains behind Excelam. But that goes to tell you that each one of us has the onus to make sure people know not only about our accomplishment, but also the fact that we went to BITS and the fact that we are proud of mentioning it anytime we get an opportunity.
Good you brought up Naveen Jain. In fact, one of the triggering points for me was exactly that same point, and I think I'm so glad that we're sitting here today with the gathering is primarily because of that same reason. Because not too many people know about it, but again, we've come a long way in terms of time. And I think the real opportunity is for each individual to excel at whatever they do. And that's how they brand themselves. And in that process, they're branding the university also. So I think there's a question from Pilani. Yes. Oh my God. Okay.
Hello, please go ahead with asking the question.
Yeah, are I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Good question from Vivek Pilani. Sir, on this sitting actually, it's all useful and very big at what you do today. If you were to go back and if you could start over all of them, what would you change? What would you do differently and why?
Can you repeat the question?
So the question was, all of you are very successful today, and if you were to start over again, what would you do differently?
Is that question for Vivek Paul or?
Vivek Paul and to the whole panel.
Yeah.
So I would say that my single biggest learning has been that whenever I started something new, I had the right intuition, and I should have trusted it and gone harder and faster. And it's one of those things where, in retrospect, if there's anything you would do differently, it would be go harder and faster at what you were going to do. Don't hold back.
Prem, would you like to add on to that?
If I had to go back and start all over again, I think the thing which is, I thought I should have started my entrepreneurship for the startup company as soon as I graduated from Pilani and came here. Should have done it much earlier, because you really enjoy when you are in that particular environment. And I really enjoyed it, the early parts of all the startup which I was involved in.
Alak, you want to give a perspective from your side now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have not done very well is use the BITS network, and I think I would do that much more moving forward. When I came here, there's at least, I would say, 15 to 20 people from my electrical design batch who are here. At one point we were in the valley. I think a lot of them are still in the valley. I sort of moved more into the software side, most of them because they did electrical engineering. They stayed in chip design and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's a perfect example of an area where we could have collaborated, a person on the software side and a person on more on the ASIC thing and things like that, which to date I have not done. Any of the companies I've worked in, I haven't had a single BITSian who's worked at the company. Today at Blue Code, there's no single BITSian. That's very different when you're actually talking about IITs. There's certain startups you see where everybody's from IIT, and so they do quite a bit to sort of get all of them together. And I don't know, it's because of the brand, or they put more effort into recruiting. And I think I'll do quite a bit more moving forward.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, so. Oh, okay. Raju, how about you?
Okay, well, there's plenty of mistakes I made along my journey, and I still continue to. So, the one biggest one is more along the lines of what Vivek was talking about. In my case, partly I think coming from technology background and coming from Intel, there was always a strong desire to kind of differentiate ourselves, even though we're in services space, through some products that we build, some IP that help us differentiate, which has worked out wonderfully. And even today, one of the areas that I don't worry about as much is getting into new accounts, largely because of this sort of IP that we build. At the same time, I think it's unless you have scale does matter. Customers do care for that. You just can't grow this into a large global business, which I'm very determined to do, and I will get there. But I wish I learned that much earlier and thought more about how to gain scale in the business, while at the same time we maintain our differentiators.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to just wrap it up real quick. Thanks for the panelists for coming by and sharing their vision on entrepreneurship. I think fundamentally today, I think because of the whole idea of entrepreneurship, we have a great gathering here. And I know practically everyone's mind is, if I were to read everyone's mind, you're probably trying to figure out how do I transform from being a BITSian to being an entrepreneur. And we heard all of those variations of it. But what I've done in my own personal career is that I've actually been able to synthesize that down to about three main sections. One of the things is being able to manage risk very effectively. Your personal risk, your professional risk. And that's a very calculated one. So on the personal side, most of us knew how to do that because when we ended up in Pilani, we had a limited budget. You could only spend so much with the Redivala. If you ended up spending too much, you had to ask your parents. At some point, they're going to say, this is the limit, buddy, put a plan together. In a professional front, though, you have to have good friends around you who can guide you and manage that whole affair. And so that's where the networking really comes into game. It's the experience, it's the crowd that you move around with. The second one really is what is critical. It's about curiosity. The fundamental thing about entrepreneurship is curiosity. If you go back, and I reflected upon 30 years ago when I actually took that 2-night trip by train to Delhi and another 6-hour ride on the bus to Pilani. All for what? In the quest of knowledge. And after that, maybe a degree. No guarantees for a job whatsoever. When we got out, yeah, we got some jobs. Yeah, something that gave you 1,000 rupees a month. But that was really not what we were looking for. We were curious. We wanted to find out what else. And in that process, we met a lot of friends, and I have a wonderful gathering of friends, which has now resulted in all of this. So I think the curiosity is something so important for your entrepreneurial growth that I think somewhere along the path, as you started building your career, somebody fed into your ears and said, curiosity kills the cat. And that immediately stuns your whole process. In fact, I was looking through a quote recently and it was interesting. They said, if curiosity really killed the cat, then the cat was actually a king. So that's okay. So I think the real important thing is, as far as entrepreneurs are concerned, lack of curiosity kills the cat. So the first important thing is to continue that pursuit of learning and knowing that you're naive, not arrogant, actually. And a naivety is actually a good thing because you continuously learn in that process. The last one is, of course, the trigger point. The trigger point comes in because you're continuously pursuing, you're continuously trying to learn, and in that process you come across a lot of friends from different walks of life, not necessarily BITSians. But when you see a BITSian, you're able to relate to that person, especially if that BITSian has risen up to a certain level. For me, that happened many years ago, 84. I was actually working for a US corporation based in Singapore, and the whole employees had gathered down in the evening to meet these founders and the senior management from the US corporation. One of them was a computer legend, Gene Amdahl. Everyone probably has heard of him. It was a great experience seeing him in person. The next one is an icon from India, Ratan Tata. The third one is the founder of Alexi, Thampi Thomas. And then as soon as I heard that he's a BITSian, it struck a chord in me, and I said, I've got to trace this path between a BITSian and an entrepreneur. What does it mean? How do I get there? And along those years, I kept meeting BITSians who kept telling me about the same thing. And then somewhere in '99, I said, why not get together in a forum where we can all actually start exchanging ideas? But one thing you got to remember with all those things, you still have to realize that BITS as a community is a small community. We have to make sure it stands for quality, but at the same time, you have to reach out to other communities and elements to really leapfrog into entrepreneurship. So don't stunt yourself, continue dreaming, and continue growing. And with that, I want to thank, is there a question? Oh my God, okay.
Professor B.R. Natarajan, who is the Dean of Distance Learning, wants to speak for 2 minutes.
Okay guys, the plan you see there is before this occasion. Have it as a bouquet. Hats off to Mayur Shah, Bo and Garbo, and CA team and ESD team and BITSAA team from Pilani for getting this. Happy that Jayan, Vivek, President, Apartment of Reddy and Alagupirian has paid for this exciting discussion. To us in the BITSian language, it was like watching a bowling with the 3 cars, Salman, Shah Rukh Khan, Adab and Amit and Rani Mukherjee have come for a shooting. Great show, and we feel forward for both things. I'm sure this apology is going to get kick-started with the alumni
giving a go-ahead with this. We are going to have a whole lot of alumni coming for during the apology, and I'm sure this video conference will bring the latest and new additions to the external part. We do cherish the most important aspect, not the structure and other things. Is also one structure now, and I'm sure when the alumni pull their names, is going big time at BITS Pilani. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Natarajan. That was great.
Okay, with that, I'm going to end the show, and thanks for organizing Ashish Gar. I'm going to hand over the mic to you.
Thank you, panelists. That was a great panel discussion. So you guys are running about half an hour behind, and I'm hungry. Who else is hungry over here? Okay, not enough people, so we'll keep going on. Who else is hungry here? Okay, a little more people. So the good news for you guys is that you have to wait for only 20 more minutes. We have a couple more things to go ahead. And first thing I'd like to do is to thank the core team, the team that comes together to create an event like this and to create all our projects. So I'm not going to take names, everybody's hungry. So if the core team could please stand so everybody can see who all you are. Are you there? Okay, there's no one. Oh, there is there. Secondly, I'd like to thank our sponsors. And evening like this is also made successful by our sponsors. So our first sponsor is VMware. We have Lindsay and Yumi from VMware. Or are they here or not? Okay, so they went away. Good. Okay, but I'm still going to say good things about VMware. So what is VMware? VMware is one of the fastest growing software companies in the Bay Area. They are leader in server virtualization software that added a new dimension to the Intel x86 architecture. And as a fast growing software company in the Bay Area, they are hiring. And we have about 9 bits in that VMware. Let's see how many of them are really here. Show of hands. Okay. Okay, there may be 4 bits in over here out of 9, but still it's a good company, by the way. And if any of you are looking to switch, or if you want to join VMware, please get in touch with one of these 4 people. The second sponsor and the platinum sponsor for tonight is Reliance Capital. And we have TJ, who by the way is an IITian. He's here from Reliance Capital. TJ will still like it. So let me bring TJ over here. TJ is the managing director of Reliance Capital. That is a financial services firm based in New York and San Francisco. Like a lot of us BITSians here, TJ is an engineer. He's from IIT. And are you proud IIT, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. Great. TJ got his BE from IIT Roorkee, and he also has an MS from UMich and an MBA from Kellogg School of Management. So TJ, people are hungry. You know that?
Thank you very much, Ashish. We're really very fortunate and proud to sponsor this event, and it just came to us and we couldn't resist the opportunity. It came from Gopal. He said, what do you think of that? I said, that'll be a great opportunity. And as a matter of fact, we have one of our portfolio companies here. It's called DS2. They do something very exciting. And Chano is the VP of Technology and one of the co-founders of DS2. They are based in Valencia, Spain. And Chano, like a typical entrepreneur, is spearheading the whole North American operations with actually marketing efforts. And he's going to show basically an Xbox at that end of the room talking with another Xbox at this end of the room over a power line. And as we know, when you're playing games, you're shooting each other. You don't want to miss the target. So quality of service is very critical when you're playing high-definition video or high-definition games like Xbox 360 in this particular case, which is actually still in a short supply. And it's about 100 feet of power line, I would say, from this end of the room to that end of the room. And I was just going to also mention what Vivek had just said. I very briefly used to work at Intel, and I was Andy Gru's, the gopher there, his assistant. And during one of the meetings with his very close managers, this is in the early 90s, when Intel was building factories all over the world. And this was at a very rapid pace when DataQuest was saying semiconductor industry is kind of topping off, there's saturation and all that kind of stuff, and Intel was out there building factories at a very rapid pace. And he said, the harder you run doesn't mean the more painful the fall will be. So you've got to keep running faster. And I think that's what Vivek mentioned today too. And I think with that, Chana, are we ready?
Thank you for coming. As TE has said, my company DS2, we develop semiconductors for one very interesting application, which is high-speed communication over power lines. This is a technology that has been around for many years. People have been using that for different applications, especially for low-speed applications. And what is new, what has been developed in the last years, is the capability of doing very high-speed transmission, so that you can use that for a totally new range of applications. That includes transmission of high-definition video, includes voice-over IP, includes any type of applications that require very high speed and that cannot be served with current wireless technology. For example, what we're showing here is one of the interesting applications of PowerLine, which is connection of different console games. That's something that's going to be a very interesting application in the following years, because between 4 and 5 million Xbox 360 devices expected to be sold in June this year. So more and more people will have this type of device at home and will have a machine that allows them to do many different things, not only playing games that we're showing here. Basically what we have is one Xbox over there connected to a small power line adapter, and then we have another Xbox here connected to another power line adapter and connected to the projector. And we are not having any cable between those. Actually, when we were setting up this demo before everybody came here, some of my people here were having problems connecting the projector, these two projectors, because they couldn't find a cable long enough for showing the presentation. So that was a really problem. I didn't have that problem because I only had to connect those to the outlet. So that helps a lot. So one of the applications is